Core 2 is finally back after a couple of months, and ReZero wastes no time and immediately gets us into our fights. Just like 2024, let's talk about the episode, set up the future, and the things that didn't make it into the anime. We start with Priscilla and Liliana preparing for their battle. I won't talk about the specifics of this scene, I'm sure there are other channels that will do that. However, it does give us some interesting insight into Priscilla and Al's relationship, kinda sorta. Liliana asks why Al isn't coming, and Priscilla responds simply that he isn't a knight, but a mere jester. And then Anastasia enters the room, and Priscilla reassures her that she can use Al as she pleases, since he will be guarding the city hall. Keep this exchange in mind for later. Due to this reaction, Liliana believes that Priscilla trusts in Al, to which she completely rejects. She doesn't trust him, as there are many things he won't divulge, but she can definitely get a lot of use out of him, which are two different matters. There's also a little piece of dialogue relating to secret keeping between Priscilla and Anastasia. However, Priscilla accuses Anna of having no place to speak when it comes to hiding things. What could this mean? Leave your comments below. We then cut to Otto encountering Gluttony, and this being the first moment of realization for our group that there are two of them, and while it seems like this spells the end for Otto, Felt pulls up alongside Gaston and some of the White Dragon Scales, who, if you don't remember, are members of a mercenary company that are currently enlisted by Kiritaka. We find out this episode that Kiritaka is also missing, and it begs the question. If they are trying to get information from the Council of 10, why would they be killing them? Something is extremely fishy here, but we can get more into that later. Otto tries to think of a way out of this. In the novels, there's a nice bit of inner monologue from him here, where he thinks about his life with his divine protection and how it enables him to talk to all sorts of creatures. He, however, runs into one issue, and it's him pondering if Sin Archbishops can even be spoken to. This continues an ongoing trend that shows us how Sin Archbishops are perceived in this world. They are pure evil, deserving of the worst, and cannot be communicated with. This is especially doubled for Otto, as Baten Kaitos begins to talk as if he knows the hero from the broadcast. It makes Otto feel ill as the Archbishop talks about meeting that hero, and it's very clear who he's channeling here. Those digested memories and feelings of Rems are reaching out and clinging to the kind of heroism that Subaru projected from the meteor. Otto tries to reason with him just to buy time, but Baten Kaitos snaps out of his love-filled illusion and begins to verbally attack Otto for being a merchant. Merchants are people that assign numbers to people, and things that shouldn't have a value, which is what begins our first major fight of Core 2. However, Otto has a trick up his sleeve, and uses the water dragons around Priscilla to defend himself. Before we can get into the thick of it, we cut to Garfiel Wilhelm as they approach their control tower. In the novels, we get some narration from Garfiel about his love for books and stories about fables and legends of heroes. He deeply respects people who leave a mark in history, and because of that, he's a little bit afraid of fighting Kurgan. Can he truly fight someone who was so far above him? This proves to be a recurring trend for Garfiel, not just that he likes stories, but that he constantly has things on his mind. And when he starts his fight against Kurgan, he thinks about how he always has too much to think about. Idle thoughts that bog down his thought process, and as he thinks this, he gets absolutely bodied by a dead man, leaving him to wonder, is he truly weak? The crux of Garfiel's character arc here, which I think I mentioned during the Core 1 videos, is confronting the big world he has encountered after leaving the Sanctuary. Can he protect his loved ones? Is he truly as strong as he thought he was before he ran into legend after legend like Reinhard von Estrella or the Sword Demon himself and now Kurgan the Eight Arms? These are all people who left their mark in history with their absurd power. How can Garfiel ever hope to match that when he considered himself a weakling who got scared of Reinhard? How could someone like that save Mimi? Garf is our shonen protagonist here. We finally get to see the big fight of Arc 5, which is Subaru, Emilia, and Reinhard versus Regulus. Upon hearing Subaru refer to her as Emilia Tan, Regulus goes on a completely unhinged incel rant, to which Subaru points out their strongest card of the Sword Saint, but Regulus is not intimidated. This is when we learn that the Dragon Sword reed on Reinhard's back does not deem Regulus worthy and cannot be drawn. It really leaves us with the impression that strength is completely irrelevant when it comes to drawing the sword, which leaves us with another impression that it must be related to character in some form, and clearly, Regulus isn't up to that task. If you have any theories on that, please leave them in the comments below. After attempting to and failing to intimidate Regulus, he pulls the ultimate victim complex mentality and threatens to kill the wives, and rather than take any accountability for it, he blames them for pushing him to this point, while accusing them of taking no accountability. Despite, or perhaps in part of the facade that Regulus puts out, of a highly dignified man who is caring and compassionate, moments like this in Episode 8 are when his true values come out. Everything he does is in an attempt to justify himself to himself. Holding the wise hostage and blaming Subaru and Reinhard is the most clear-cut example of manipulation one can get, yet in his mind it's entirely justified. In his mind, perhaps being imperfect is terrifying. This is why he dresses up everything he does as best as he can. That's why he treats the wives the way he does. They must dress the way he wants them to, they must act the way he wants them to, and they must never smile, for any imperfection shown to him could break him. This is what puts Reinhard in this conflict in such an interesting position, the man that nobody sees as imperfect except for Subaru and Felt, and that's part of the reason why he finds himself at so much comfort with them. For Regulus, who was so terrified of imperfection, to fight Reinhard, who was so terrified of keeping up the image of perfection, whose ideas will come out on top. Reinhard tells Regulus to let the wives go, and he will, if he can hit Reinhard once without blocking. Reinhard accepts and quite literally dies before being revived with the divine protection of the Phoenix. Personally, I think ending the episode on Reinhard getting killed was an extremely easy layup, but I guess not. This increases the count for people in ReZero who can experience death besides Subaru by another point. Kind of weird how this keeps popping up, huh? We get to see Ricardo and Julius as they enter the gluttony fight, and there's a little bit cut here, but nothing tremendous. Julius announces his name, the worst decision you can make against gluttony, and Roy comments on how true to form Julius is, calling him Nichan, or brother. We saw Lai tapping into Rem's memories to be obsessed with Subaru, so it kind of leaves it to be pretty clear what Roy is doing at the start of this fight with Julius here. Before going into the final portions of the episode, we see Priscilla and Liliana again. Liliana expresses her worry over Kiritaka's safety, and Priscilla says it's unlikely he's dead, and that the council attacks are likely being done by someone that isn't a cultist, because they have no incentive to kill the council, something we discussed in a previous episode video. In the novels, she also brings up how the Watergate was opened and it seemingly saved their forces, and Liliana can't help but wonder, Priscilla seems to know an awful lot about this ongoing situation. Does she perhaps know who did all this? They kind of cut Priscilla's response to this. It's not that long, I'm assuming they just did it for time. In the novels, Priscilla comes to her senses somewhat, saying how unlike her it is to speak that much, sidestepping Liliana's question and just moving on to the Sirius fight. Well, it's very clear that Priscilla knows something about the Council of Ten's murder and the Watergate being opened. I don't want to push any anime-only speculation in any direction, so I'll simply let you come to a conclusion yourself. If you have any ideas, please do let me know in the comments. Cutting back to the church fight, Emilia sees the giant wound on Reinhard and wants to heal him, and Subaru, at least in the novels, makes a joke about Reinhard using Shadow Clone Jutsu. Reinhard assures them that it's fine, there is no wound, though he did die for real and wouldn't want to experience it a second time. Hearing about this divine protection, Subaru has some inner monologue. What sort of blessing allows someone to die once? What do they think death means? Obviously, Subaru feels some type of way about this. Subaru asks about the wives as Regulus gets back up out of the rubble. He does what he does best and starts talking shit, and about how he was trampled on like an ant and asking them how he thinks it makes him feel. Reinhard initiates the fight against Regulus, telling Subaru to figure out his invincibility and to clear out the church because it's about to become a battlefield. The wives, however, refuse to leave. They're staying, as they do not get permission to leave. Subaru tries to reassure them that they have the Sword Saint, but 184 doesn't care. Nobody can beat Regulus, and she refuses to be saved. This creates another parallel between Reinhard and Regulus. Reinhard is a man that has the entire backing of the nation, if not the entire world, knowing of his strength and thinking he cannot be defeated. People find safety and assurance in that, and the same mentality of how could he lose applies to Regulus, but instead of being a safety net for people, it's something terrifying that they have to face. We get a small look at some of the upcoming fight animation, or hopefully, because Reinhard vs. Regulus gets a few small cuts, and to be honest, it looks pretty good. I'm really hoping this isn't just a, small period of time and they actually go all in on some of this fight animation in future episodes, but I'll save that for the adaptation section of this video. Before entering the fight, Subaru talks to the wives, and he understands that they are afraid. However, you can't see tomorrow if you're looking at the back of your eyelids. Then, Subaru grabs Emilia's hand, and they go outside the chapel to join the fight against Regulus. Finally, the episode ends with Capella pulling up on the City Hall, their base of operations. A reminder, the people here are Krush, Ferris, Anastasia, and Aldebaran. A lot of interesting content this week with some strong parallels developing with Reinhard and Regulus, some great Garfiel characterization coming out, and Otto, Felt, and Gluttony starting. What are you guys most excited about in this core? Let me know in the comments below, and let's get into the next sections. Episode 9 is the start of the all-out brawl that is Arc 5, and personally, this episode was pretty good. I went in with kind of low expectations because, if you didn't know, as an adaptation, I rated Core 1 a 6 out of 10. However, the character art in this episode is phenomenal, but I guess that's really the standard at this point. I like the nighttime lighting and what it does for the color palette because before it was very bland in my opinion. Reinhard vs. Regulus has some very, very good small cuts outside of the church. The only complaint I really have for this episode is that I was personally a Reinhard death cliffhanger type of guy. I know that's not how it is in the novels, people keep telling me that, and before you comment that, these aren't the novels. I thought I would be fine to kill Reinhard at the end of 9 and revive him at the start of 10. I also feel that the death and revival lacked a lot of impact, but that's just me. That's all I have to say about the adaptation this week. Stay tuned for episode 10, though, because I can confirm good things are coming. For cut content this week, we don't have anything game-changing, just some things here and there. First of all, when Otto and Felt first run into each other, we get some inner monologue from Otto about his thoughts on her. It's when we learn that Otto is actually pretty fond of Felt. He really enjoys her candid attitude and thought that if she approached him before Emilia did, he probably would have joined Felt camp. Nothing important, but I think it's interesting to think about what other options Otto could have taken given his intellect. Before Julius and Ricardo encounter Roy, they have a conversation. This was cut for time and it really wasn't ultimately necessary, but Julius confides in Ricardo that there was something off about Roy. It was as if Roy knew him, and it made him extremely uncomfortable, like someone from their camp had been consumed. Obviously, this is given away at the end of their scene, so it was cut. There's also some dialogue between Julius and Roy that's cut, in which Roy calls Julius a good knight but a boring man. Quote, a dash of inferiority, the mellow aftertaste of setbacks and disappointment, the sweet despair of desperate longing, end quote. The last two cuts take place in the church. When Reinhard dies and returns in order to protect Emilia, she can't help but feel guilty that Reinhard would go as far as to die for her, which obviously has Subaru feeling a type of way, and it's just a small gag scene for Subaru, going, really? When Regulus returns from the rubble, Emilia can't help but wonder if she recognizes him from somewhere, asking if they met before. Regulus has no memory of it either and starts to yap a bunch, to which Subaru tells him to shut the fuck up and hits him with a whip. As you can see, nothing major cut this week, but still some good characterization stuff I thought we could talk about. Let me know what you guys thought about the episode, and I will see you on stream for the episode discussion in a few hours, and then see you for the episode 10 video next week. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, make sure you subscribe for more. You can also check the description down below to become a member, which gives you benefits like early videos, membership badges, and cool custom emotes. You can join the Discord where we talk about ReZero, Kagurabachi, Jujutsu Kaisen, and all kind of stuff. Additionally, you can go to the channel store and pick up some awesome stickers made by our channel artist, so you can carry the power of Garfiel with you on your water bottle. That's about it though. Thank you for watching. See ya.